we can have what we want if we work together and for ourselves, John and Yoko, and we did a lot of work together. After it happened, I heard about 20 minutes later, I ride uptown with them every night. I was told that John had been shot.
After a tough day at the studio, John Lennon was on his way home when producer Jack Douglas last saw him. He had been at Record Plant in New York City with his wife, Yoko Ono, recording the song that would become Ono's 1981 hit, Walking on Thin Ice. Lennon gave Douglas a smile and said he would see him for their 9 a.m. studio call the following morning as he made his way to the elevator. He was very positive, Douglas remarked on December 8, 1980, the last day of the session. They were both incredibly joyful. Douglas would not see his pal again after that. A young fan named Mark David Chapman, who had been to get Lennon's autograph earlier in the day, shot and killed the artist just as he and Ono were ready to move into the Dakota, the residence where they shared with their son, Sean. A legendary life that had recently changed from that of a hard-partying rock star to a loving father focused on reviving his music career was cut short by the tragic murder. When the 78-year-old Douglas first worked with Lennon on his seminal album Imagine in 1971, their musical collaboration had already gone a long way. Lennon and Ono had just released Double Fantasy, a comeback album co-produced by Douglas that became a huge commercial success 1 month prior. He claims, "It didn't matter to him that we weren't going to blow up the globe with that record. At 40 years old, all he wanted to do was be honest about where he was in life, and he was ecstatic about it." According to Douglas, Lennon was thinking ahead, excitedly organizing a tour and hoping for a reunion with the boys. He was also kicking around the notion of him and the other Beatles backing Ringo Starr's next album as the backup band. Jeff Emmerich, a Beatles engineer, used to frequently tell me that John was a little irrational and irritable when we first started working together. He disliked hanging about at the studio waiting for something. When it came time to do Double Fantasy, I was aware of his reaction to every situation. He goes on saying he was just so glad to be with his family and how much he loved Sean and how things were going relatively smoothly with Yoko during that whole era. John was an entirely different person at that time, and everything about it was wonderful. Even though Lennon was described as jovial, Douglas claims he always had jokes. In his later years, the celebrity appeared to be troubled by ominous prophecies. Occasionally, he would talk about dying. Sayings like, "I might be gone soon," would come from him. "When I die, it's going to be bigger than Elvis," he would declare. And I would tell them to stop talking that way. He demanded that notebooks be kept for every moment, that everything be recorded, and that I set up mics throughout the studio to capture it all. He seemed to be highly perceptive and to have a sense that something was going to happen. Very much so. Something almost otherworldly about things. Lennon's sinister sensation reached a terrifying climax on December 8th. The musician told his friend that he was going to Bermuda shortly after his session with Douglas, and the two agreed that Lennon and Ono would return to the studio in the new year to complete the songs that would become Milk and Honey. The album was eventually released in 1984, though the songs were recorded but not finished during the Double Fantasy era. Living only 3 blocks apart, Douglas and Lennon would usually leave the studio together. However, Douglas stayed behind that evening to finish the record for Karen Lawrence and the Pins, having pushed it back earlier in the day to fit in Lennon's session. Normally, after getting out of the limousine, I would stroll to our apartment on Central Park West. And that had a lasting impact on me for a long time, he adds. Soon after, tragedy struck, and Douglas's wife hurried to the studio to inform her husband that Lennon had been shot after learning of it over the radio. After arriving at Roosevelt Hospital, the pair stayed there until 6 in the morning. Douglas, who came on Tom Snyder's late-night show at Ono's request to reassure fans that Lennon would not want them to harm themselves over the news of his passing, described the immediate aftermath as a haze. The only memorial service for John Lennon was conducted in the studio 2 days later, and it was a private gathering hosted by Douglas and Ono. I had an assistant bring out everything we could find in the vault when we went to the studio at 11 or 12 at night, he adds. It was anything. Talking, his music, anything. And we did nothing except listen to various things that John had done until daybreak. And that constituted the sole available service. Just Yoko and I were there. Douglas felt that a dream had died with Lennon's passing. He claims that there were a lot of plans. What's your secret to writing a truly fantastic song? I once asked John. Tell the truth and make it rhyme, he said. Because he sung about his experiences, a lot of people always felt as though they knew him, which is why they felt so connected to him. His song just had this amazing sincerity about it,